Toby, how did you, what kind of shape are you in for European competition?
Me personally or the team?
I think you know I made in the team.
So come on, there's no need to get personal straight off the bat, Mark. Soften me up a little bit. We're in much better shape than we were the week before. Let's put it that way. We've had a good couple of training session days, and reintegration is always a challenge, especially when you're looking at effectively 15 players. But competition has been good. We try to train competitively wherever we can, and we've just finished a session that was very competitive. So that's exciting, and we obviously, to get competition for places for the long term allows us to perform better and more consistently. So that's good, and on the back of some people that really put their hand up in very trying circumstances in South Africa over the last couple of weeks is also great, because now we've got a few more selectable options that we probably didn't know about. So that's probably where we are.
Who did particularly well for you out there in South Africa?
Sorry, Mark, you broke up.
Who did well for you out in South Africa?
I thought Hugh Sutton was very good. Obviously, calling a line out in a very high pressure environment, considering 12 months ago he was playing for Swansea University, and to do it well with 90% accuracy and bits and pieces. So he was very good, and he's growing physically as well, which was great. The young props obviously got a lot of exposure, which is good. Some of the more established, so Scott Baldwin, Sam Parry, really put their hand up in relation to leading a younger group. So yeah, there's always added benefit in very trying circumstances. And to see, I thought Luke Morgan and Keelan Giles obviously have gone well too.
And this week, are there any players, there are a couple of obvious players that you're missing. Could you give us updates on those? The likes of Gareth Anscombe, Dan Lydiate, Dowie Lake. How are these guys progressing?
Well, Dowie Lake has returned to training in this week, since obviously being injured in the Dragons game. So he's back in. He's still non-contact, so he's going through his contact progressions. This week will be a week too soon for him, but maybe after that we'll see how those boxes get ticked off, which is good. Gareth Anscombe is a long-term injury. He's in the same scenario that Justin Tipperick was in with his shoulder blade, so that's a difficult one, and we'll see how that goes. He's back in the building, and he's already doing everything he can to get back as soon as he can. It's not as bad as Justin's, I don't think. Well, no, I know it's not. So from that point of view, the timeline is still going to be pretty lengthy though. Steve Myler's probably a couple of weeks away. And Dan Lydiate is obviously recovering from a broken arm, so he's naturally going to be a little bit of time in.
With Gareth, do you see him playing any part in the Six Nations?
Can't answer that. Don't know the answer to that. So again, it's governed by how he responds really, and obviously where there's bony growth required, it depends on how the bone growth goes, and that's an individual thing.
He's been so unlucky, Toby, hasn't he, really, that he seems to have had one injury after another, and quite serious injuries as well over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, he's a guy who we feel for, because he's worked so hard in the time that I've been here. Obviously he was injured and then got back and got back to playing well really. He was probably put into the Welsh setup a little bit earlier than he would have hoped for, and then obviously got out, and the resilience that he showed to then keep pushing forward and then get back to to a starting jersey for us and for Wales was good, and he was playing well. And he had an HIA after the first game for us against the Scarlets, so even for us he's had that bit part wrong. But the one thing about Gareth is that he'll keep pushing. He's a very resilient guy who will do his utmost to get back as soon as he can, and we're obviously helping to do that.
It seems safe to write then, really, that he's unlikely to be ready for the start of the Six Nations, which is 7 weeks 7 weeks this weekend?
I know, Mark, you're going to keep asking me the same question, and I'll keep giving you the same answer. So I think that yeah, it's going to be unlikely for sure. But you know, we just want to get him back playing as soon as we can, whenever we can.
Now, what are you expecting, Toby, from Leicester this weekend? It's they're a form side, aren't they?
You better ask Ali that. He'll be able to tell you that. Mr. Eakin, he knows more about it. He watches them more regularly than I do. Now, no, look, since obviously Steve Borthwick's gone back there, the reaffirming their identity of, you know, having a very good set piece for sure. They're very territory based. You can see the Saracens' influence, if you like, and that's I mean that's a compliment about playing high pressure and territory based games, and they're very physical. You know, they're the champions of England, so you know you don't, as I know better than anybody, you don't get that title by accident for sure.
With your contract situation, I mean you've got a lot of players. You've told us earlier on in the season you've got a lot of players out of contract come the summer. Is that a plus for you, Toby, or is it a minus in that you could have an opportunity to reconfigure your squad, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could, but it'd be nice to have the choice in a decent timeline to prepare for that. I mean, if it's just on performance and choice, then that's fine, but it's not, and people are very distracted because there's a lot of uncertainty about their futures, and I can be as empathetic around that as I like, but when you're going home and your missus is tapping you on the shoulder about their mortgage and what's going to go on, that provides different issues for everybody. So yeah, the one thing I would say, there's been no sign of a lack of effort, and that's what's really pleasing, and a commitment side of things. And as you say, we've got 30 plus of these players to deal with when we can. And we also want to reward the people that have played well and have long-term futures at the Ospreys and for Wales. So from our point of view, we want to get the ball rolling as soon as possible. Similarly, if people aren't in our plans, we need to have the respect to let them know as soon as possible. But as you can imagine, there's some that sit in the middle, and they're the really difficult ones because we don't know what the ballpark looks like well enough in order to make those decisions, because one thing is connected to another. So yeah, it's multi-layered, very difficult, very emotional for everybody, people that are trying to sort it out, a lot of uncontrollables. I have a massive empathy for our players, but the only thing I can say to them is I'm absolutely delighted the fact that on effort and evidence it's not detracting from their want to be a good rugby player when the time comes. However, when they're away from the club and when they're away from it, there's obviously going to be, you know, a mental element to all of that.
Are you optimistic? The likes of Jack Morgan, Dewi Lake, Adam Jones, these guys will recommit to the club for under new contracts?
Yeah, I think that's I am. And then obviously, you know, I started here 2 seasons ago. It's been a long building process, and you know, things like this and COVID and all this other stuff means that the rate of progress can get, you know, derailed for a bit or taken off course for a bit, and that's really, really difficult. But we're committed to having that program that can produce these players, the people that, you know, we are part of, along with them, their effort, their talent, are part of getting them further up the chain in relation to recognition, and that counts for something. And you know, they're a loyal bunch that want to be here, but you know, we need to get moving because we want to secure everybody's future and security as soon as we can.
Last question from me, really. You must have been pleased with Alan Wynn's performance in the final international, after sort of coming out and suggested he would play like that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I get. Is he in the running? Do you feel for the Wales captaincy now?
Well, there's 2 questions in that. The first one is, I told you so. So from that point of view, yeah. And obviously being fully fit and being in the situation to show what you can do and getting an opportunity, and he got an opportunity. I mean, which shows that, you know, he's a long way from, you know, throwing it in for sure. Obviously, he knows Warren Gatland well, and I'm sure those conversations will go on between him, and where he sees his future will be a different thing. So All we can concentrate is, Owen's performances for us and creating that environment that he wants to be here, and we'll see where that takes it.
It was very interesting that one of Gatland's first comments was, "We'll have to look at the age profile of the Wales team."
Well, you were there, so you know what the context of that was.
So I don't know whether well, he's very good at putting people on their mettle, isn't he? Well, I'm sure he'd be knocking the door and asking you, but from what you've seen, you'd be quite happy with some of your aging warriors.
Yeah, look, again, people know. People always try and second guess coaches, right? That's a very dangerous thing to do, because the only people that know is them. And to be a coach and go through what you go through, you're a fairly eccentric bunch at the best of times. So from that point of view, all I can comment is how he's performed for the Ospreys, and how he's performed 25 minutes ago. And there's plenty of life in that in Al, and there's plenty of leadership, and there's plenty of desperation to do well. Because the thing that's got him the caps he's got is he has his own standards of performance. He'd be the first to challenge the opportunity that he's been given, and once he's been given it, he can work on the feedback. He has still the same desire to get better and improve, but I'm fairly certain when he decides enough is enough, he'll be the person deciding that, not too many others. Obviously, I'm not talking about from a Welsh point of view, but Al's very honest about what he can and can't do. And for us, I find him, a very good challenge and good to deal with for sure.
Yeah, we spoke to Derry Lake at the European launch, and he was very honest about where he was and in his game as well as in his fitness. But he was hoping to be back, I think, for the second round.
Yep. I think there's a good chance of that.
And the fact he didn't have an operation and he's healed quite quickly as a youngster is probably the best thing that could have happened to him.
Yeah, and also the way he plays as well, right? He's a very abrasive player.
Yeah.
So, and the position he plays, you've got to have confidence in your body, but, as all good hookers, he's got a lot of disrespect for his own body as well. So we've just got to make sure that he gets back and gets, back in a position to play well, not just play.
When you talk about Gareth's injury, the same as Justin, does that mean his shoulder went inwards?
No, not in relation to that, just the nature of what it is, just a shoulder blade injury.
Right.
A bony injury of the shoulder blade, so not in relation where it went, but the outcome.
Yeah. Does it mean then he'll need surgery or not?
No, not necessarily.
No.
Justin ended up prolonging his because of the bone growth, and they had to stimulate some bone growth and bits and pieces. So that was a secondary operation. But first of all is to get the bone health ready.
Yeah, poor fella. I mean, after coming back after that knee injury and having so many operations, and just to show the kind, and then once again you go back to Gatland saying, "Oh, I like the way he went to the line." He's determined
to get back. He's determined to get back as soon as possible, which is good.
Yeah, you get a chance on Sunday to have a look at Tommy Reffel as well. Is he on your shopping list?
No, he's not on my shopping list. I have Jack Morgan, I have Harry Dees, I have Justin Tipperick, so no, he's not on my shopping list. But I'm sure other Welsh regions are looking into it for sure. And obviously depends what goes on with the 60 cap rule and bits and pieces like that. So no, from our point of view, I'm pretty happy with what I got, thanks.
Yeah. Finally, speaking to Di Flanagan, we were asking about the contract situation. I don't want to get into that detail with you, but do you feel it's a reality that players will have to face up to reduced contracts next summer?
Well, you can't spend what you haven't got, for sure. And it's going to mean that people are going to have to choose very, very carefully, because there's going to be some austerity out there for sure. So I think everyone's got to sharpen their pencil, to be fair, and we'll see what that looks like, hopefully in days, not weeks.
Yeah, well hopefully you've got the chance to do that now, which you desperately need to do to catch up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just on that too, I was going to say the PRB agreement is not kind of taken effect yet for you guys in terms of recruitment and retaining players for next season.
It hasn't taken place for anyone yet. So there's still what we're allowed to do by when. So I think they're talking about now about getting into a situation where we can at least agree heads of terms. That's the next stage, and I think there'll be further meetings to allow us to see if we can do that, and hopefully we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you've mentioned before, it's just sympathy for the players, I suppose, to be in this situation and not really knowing where their future lies.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, not just players, there's staff as well, right? So there's staff in that situation, and there's obviously, because of, there's also outliers and details. So, people have brought in people on injury dispensation because of medical insurance money, which on the outset looks confusing because, well, they're giving that person a contract and not someone else, and it's just a short term, see you through to the end of the year and paid for by somebody else, so it's completely different. So yeah, it's a very layered and very emotional thing, and takes a lot of managing and explaining and coercing, and as I said, from our point of view, I'm just delighted so far how the players have tried to put it to the back of their mind and perform well for us.
You mentioned short-term contracts there. Owen Williams, has he settled in? Is he in line to feature?
He's 2 training sessions. It's ironic because I met Owen when I first started, actually, before he went to Japan, as a potential, and then obviously he went to Japan, and then we recruited Steve. So from that point of view, it's quite interesting that we end up getting an opportunity a couple of years later to reconvene. So yeah, I'm excited about what he can do. He's got a lot of personal motivation and about being in this area, being back in Wales, and that's exciting for everybody.
Against one of his former clubs, Leicester, I suppose. General thoughts on the competition, Toby? You've spoken about Leicester, but hopes for the Ospreys this season in Europe?
Well, we've got the English champions and the French champions. I'll be able to ask that more accurately probably in 2 games' time. So, we're at home, change of focus, excited to go there. I'm sure no one gives us a chance, and that's fine, we'll deal with that.
Yeah, it's a tough ask, but the format of the competition, your thoughts on that?
I can't control that. We know obviously in 3 team pools rather than 4, it's more difficult obviously to qualify because it was always the same. You'd win your home in the original format. It was always win your home games and try and sneak one away, and you were close. Whereas this is unless you're in a very competitive pool, if you can get 2 wins, you're probably home free. So from that point of view, the window of opportunity is slim. So that's why you've got to try and get off to a good start, especially as we're at home.
And in terms of selection for Sunday, do you have all your Wales players available apart from those injured?
I do. And that some of those will feature, which is good, a nice injection of quality. But they also know from how the boys perform from an effort point of view that they have a responsibility as well to perform well, and that's why they're international rugby players. So yeah, it's good to have those boys back and leading the charge.
Just finally from me, Darren Edwards reports that he's not been around. What's the situation there? He's
still employed by the Ospreys. He's got some personal stuff going on, and we've sort of given him a leave of absence around that, but he's still employed by the Ospreys.
Cool. And any time frame on if he's coming back, or if you're looking to play?
No time frame.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Toby.
No worries.
Toby, just a couple of quick ones, partially answered by your answer a couple of months ago, but the kind of priorities for you this season, it's easy to look at the results, the situation in South Africa, illness, all the politics swirling around finances and all the rest of it, and go, well, clearly Europe won't be a priority for the Ospreys this year. Would that be wrong to assume that?
Yeah, I think it'd be wrong in relation to, obviously you could also look at it and go, right, we've not gone well, so this is an opportunity to kickstart. So look, we as cliched as it is, new competition provides a freshness to it. Boys coming back from international windows. There's always context in everything that you've just talked about. It's an opportunity for us to improve and get a result. And that's what we're looking to do. And if you get the first result, then that starts to, as you said, the nature of the competition starts to look different. It was the same last year. And then we'll see where that takes us. But from a league point of view, yeah, we've got to start turning narrow losses and draws into wins for sure, because ultimately we're here to show the best of ourselves, and we probably haven't done that. There's mitigation circumstances which, if you want to look into. Some of those are in our control, some are not. Some are injury led, some are key position led. But we've just got, as I said, I won't change my tone. We've just got to be better, and whoever puts a shirt on has to do the best they can. We can't be better than what we are, but we can ask everyone individually to be the best they can be every single time, and that's part of the growth of young players.
And just briefly on Jack Walsh, who's been your main man for the last few weeks anyway, give us a flavour of how he's grown in the time that you've been with him.
Yeah, well, that's a great example, right? Learning at the sharp end. He's started more games with us than he has in 2 years at Exeter, in the most pivotal position on the pitch. So yeah, it's been a pretty steep learning curve for sure, as well as learning a different style of play, which is completely different to our Exeter play, and also lead a team. So it's a pretty steep curve for him. The good thing about Jack is that he'll embrace it. He's a confident young man, and not afraid to talk up. But to get some, in an ideal world with young players, especially in that position, you'd like to put him in for a bit, take him out for a bit, recover, learn, assess your learning and move on. But he's just had to go with Steve Myler's absence and also with Gareth Hanscom, not playing for us very much either. So it's been a massive learning curve for him. He's an exciting player in relation to what he can do in attack, in phase play, and he's obviously got a league background. Does a lot of the stuff that you'll remember that Carl Eastman used to do when I was at Bath. So there's a lot of that rugby league in him with a league background. The tough thing for him is the game management side of it, because in the league you don't need to do that, as much. So that's where his learning is, and he's getting better at that. But we don't want it to be at cost of his point of difference, and that's why learning at the sharp end is very difficult for him. But we've put enough support around him. He's got a lot of good players around him, and when we get him through the other side, there'll be a good player on the end of it.
Yeah. What about communication? You obviously talk a lot about communication at 10. How's his comms? And
his comms
how's
are good, yeah.
You've got some pretty illustrious players around him. That's a good thing in terms of hopefully providing a degree of calm, but also requires him to start kicking the backsides of some 100-cap internationals too.
Yeah. I mean, they're an honest bunch and understand that, and he's certainly not a person that's going to be found wanting from a vocality point of view. The comms for the others are really around supporting him and helping him not have to carry the mantle on his own, and that's where people like Michael Collins have been great for him, and obviously George North coming back into the team in recent times, because if you look at him, you look at Joe Hawkins, for example, they're very young men, right? And they are, we're trying to ask them to live in the big picture and in the moment they're in, and think about what we've got to do next and bits and pieces. So yeah, he'll keep being brave, he'll keep talking. We've just got to try and, as you say, support him enough that he doesn't feel like he's completely on his own.
And Joe himself, can you outline the sort of special qualities that you feel he has? Yeah,
first player, obviously in my first pre-season, and I've obviously had a history, and as you know, of helping people become international rugby players from young ages into, from forward backs and whatever. He's the one, when as soon as I saw him, I said he'll be an international rugby player, without doubt, because the way he thinks about the game, the way he prepares himself, his mentality is very much a international player's mindset, and he's got the talent to go with it. He's by far nowhere near the finished article, we'll be the first to say that, but you've seen the footage on Wales under-20s captain, talks very well, understands the big picture, comes back 3 days later, his dad's filming him on Twitter because he wants to get better, and he's got none of those distractions. He's a very driven young man, and it will be about how we manage him. I don't mean in minutes, but in relation to giving him enough challenge, but also enough support and enough recovery, because he's a special talent for sure.
Yeah, and just as regards the kind of broader stuff of what you feel you have been achieving over the last few weeks, even allowing for defeats, what's been going well for you in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, from an effort point of view, consistency of effort, for sure. Learning how to deal with teams that are physically bigger than you, because we've been somewhat diminished from we 15 players in with Wales, 9-10 forwards. So from that point of view, it's been brilliant in relation to fast tracking some of those boys, and we've got our DNA's very, as you'd imagine from my point of view, there's a set piece element to the Ospreys which is really important. So I think that getting those boys back and being able to fulfil that DNA consistently is good, and some of that has stood up. You saw the try, a couple of tries from Mull, for example, against physically bigger opposition, and we've got to make sure that we keep our DNA true to what we do, whoever's in it. So yeah, that's been going well for us. It's been going well for us all year. We just need to obviously get other parts of our game. We're scoring more tries than we did last year. We've made a commitment to do that, and we're scoring 4 try bonus points away at Loftus. So from that point of view, there's a lot going right.
Slightly more oblique question, but related to the Welsh setup. Is there any kind of sort of tangible bounce from the news this week that Gats is back? Does that filter through the system at all at your level, or is everybody just concentrated on not being sick?
Yeah, well, the ones coming back certainly. I think that not the simple answer is no. There's often an air of caution around all this. We'll wait and see, and that's probably where they are at the moment. I think that the one thing I would say about the boys coming back and meeting up with the boys that have come from South Africa, there's certainly a tightness within the group, and almost it's good to be home a little bit. And that's a great reflection on the culture that we have here. And you add that to the work ethic on the pitch, then we've got some good basis and boulders to produce it or try and build a performance from.
Can you just clarify, Toby, how many people were affected by this illness? Was it all the whole of your squad, just a handful of people?
Probably. I think it was. Well, there were different variations in symptoms, right? But people that were taken off the grid, if you like, there were 6 of them, 2 staff, and then obviously some had minor symptoms. So there was that, and then obviously the absentees on top made it quite a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody fine now, or getting to fine?
Yeah. No, getting to fine. Yeah, majority of people are fine.